This is Steve Zeltzer with Workweek and Pacifica, and we have covered the developments, economic developments and workers' developments in Namibia for some time, and the investment by particularly the Chinese is very important in Namibia. And joining us today on our program is Koos Calitz. He was a worker at the Husab mine, which is the largest uranium mine. It's the largest investment in Africa by China, and Swakopmund, and the company, the Chinese Guangdong Nuclear Power Holding Corporation, which is a state-owned corporation in China, invested in this mine. So, Koos, why don't you talk about the work that you did, how you ended up working at that mine, what kind of job you had there?
Okay, Steve. Well, I'm a mechanical engineer by profession. So in 2010, I first joined the Husab project when it was still Extract Resources, Australian company. I was appointed there on contract basis just after the pre-feasibility was completed, showing all indications of a good solid mining uranium endeavor. So I worked there for 3 years, and then within the 3-year period when I was working as representing the owners team for Extract Resources, the project was bought by CGMPC. All signs were positive. So when they acquired the project, they obviously spoke to a few of us that was on the owners team at that time that has done the bankable feasibility, that's been involved with the detailed design of many of the aspects. My particular responsibility at that time was linear infrastructure, including water supply and access road infrastructure. So I negotiated with Swakopmund, Chinese owned then, that I will join them for the execution of the project, building of the mine, which we concluded. So I was involved with 3 years contract basis. My specific responsibility was just over 100 million US. Now that I was very excited and glad my projects were all completed in time and in budget. So at the end of October 2015, I left the Husab project when my fixed term contract terminated. So I was not with Husab for about just over a year, I think a year and 3 months. So then I was considering going back into mining again, uranium mining. At the time, I had a very good standing with Swakopmund, especially their CEO. So I inquired. There was opening a vacant position, deputy director in the projects department, which I applied for, and I was appointed there successfully as deputy director projects in February 2017. So about 6 months later, they got a new Chinese CEO that worked together with the previous CEO, Chinese, and for some reason he wasn't very fond of me. My performance was still good in that year, when I was appointed on permanent on the operations team. Under my control was about also 100 million US smaller projects, rectifications. We were in the ramp-up phase of this mine to get the mine in full production. But in the middle of April 2018, they developed a mislike in me. What I did, 2 things. The one thing, I was at that time the project director, relocated back to China. So I took his position as acting project director. And the CEO at that time, the new CEO, wanted to minimize my engineering resources within the project department. And I knew that would seriously jeopardize the full or the ramp up of the mine to get to full production capacity. So I tried talking to him and reasoning with him. And eventually I had no other option but to report this as a major risk to the corporate risk department, which I did per email, which is the normal way that you should report a risk, where the stakeholders or the owner's interest is at risk. So I basically reported this risk due to the CEO's persistence that he wanted to downsize on the engineering competence. At that time, we were less than 50% of nameplate production. He wasn't very happy about that. In the same month, many of the workers on Husab, there was a group grievance about the Chinese management, the executive management of the company. Well, I was in a manager position at that time, but I wasn't executive management at that time. So there was a lot of frustrations about the way that Namibian workers were being dealt with. So when I was asked whether I would sign this thing, I carefully studied the document. So I also signed the grievance, which in our Namibian legislation is should by no means put you in a position where you are being victimized or anything. So I also signed the grievance, and it was within 2 weeks, the top 3 of us that signed the grievance were called in, and it was said, but the company decided it is restructuring, and because of the restructuring, there's no part for us in the company anymore. So one colleague had no other option, but he sort of accepted. Their first offer was a 4-month voluntary separation agreement, and me and the second colleague said, no, we are not accepting that. And they kept on, and they said, okay, they will give us 6 months on a voluntary separation agreement, leave the employer of the company.
And why did they say that they were separating you?
Well, the reason was because they said they are restructuring the company and there's no need for us anymore. But there was no real solid ground. It was definitely not a restructuring process, as is there's certain specific procedures that you need to follow according to our labor legislation, but it was no way of that. So I think initially they thought we will just accept and move on, but when we resisted, then they invoked the formal retrenchment procedure according to the Labor Act, and which states that you must negotiate and that you must do certain things. But it was predetermined, this separation of us. So me and my metallurgical engineer friend, we were told to move off-site. We were given about half a day to take our stuff and to move to the town office. And upon arriving in the town office, we were there for I cannot remember because it's all in the record. The record for this case at the Supreme Court is more than 1,200 pages. But anyway, I think it was about 2 weeks when we were at the town office where they said, okay, after they gave us the formal or the official then document to say that we will be dismissed on the retrenchment basis, that we will not be required to come to work for the last month. And if we will set foot on their premises in the last month, that was said to us that the next week, if we would dare to show up at work, they would get the police to arrest us. And so we had no option but to leave the employer of the company. So the formal exiting took place the following month while we were not in absence, basically. So we soon registered a case at the Labor Commissioner for unfair dismissal.
And what was exactly the statement of the grievance that you filed jointly with the workers at the mine? What was the content of it?
There were a couple of things. One thing was that Chinese people were appointed left, right, and center without any the normal interview processes being followed as for the Namibians. So there were clear discrepancies between the way that Namibians were treated and the way that Chinese people were appointed. What also was a little bit of a concern at that stage is that the majority of the Namibian workforce in, I think it was 2018, did not get a salary increase. But the way it was communicated to them was very poor. It was basically communicated as if they did not do their job, and because of they did not do the job, they would not get a salary increase. So we were not happy about the way that the management, in the way that management communicated to the workers. But it was basically, in short, that you know, the Namibian worker were treated inferior to the Chinese worker.
So in other words, the workers felt that there was a discrimination based on their nationality. That if you were Chinese, you would get special rights. You didn't have to go through the normal process of getting a job or being appointed to a job.
Absolutely, yes.
And under Namibian law, is that legal?
Absolutely not. No, it is not legal. I mean, you can appoint, I guess you can appoint your directors and you can appoint certain management roles, but to take that all the way down to the workers, you know, and apply that principle throughout, where you have preferential treatment to Chinese workers, that is not according to the Namibian law.
And what kind of workers are we talking about? What kind of jobs were we talking about?
It's basically everything, Steve. It's ranging from management, supervisory level, artisans, and also general workers. It was a broad spectrum of Chinese workers.
So we're talking about the discriminatory treatment of Namibian workers at the Husab mine. You signed a grievance with the workers, other workers at the mine, that in fact that this practice of discrimination was improper, that it was a violation of the rules of the law, and as a result of that, you and two other colleagues were dismissed, and you challenged it, and they moved you and threatened you with arrest if you came back to that property.
Yes, absolutely. They would call the police on me if I would return in my last month of work, basically.
And were you surprised by that kind of treatment?
Absolutely. It was my first time ever. I mean, I've been in the Namibian mining industry for more than 25 years, and that was the first time that this happened.
I guess you felt that they wanted you out because you challenged them and you supported the workers. Is that why they wanted you out?
Absolutely. I have no doubt, Steve. It's because I supported the workers, and it's also because I challenged the CEO in his view of things, which, according to my experience that has been involved, this was my third startup of a new mine, where he did not have any mining experience in his past. The CEO was involved in nuclear power plants. That's a total different story than mining. So my grievance was every reason to be a risk for the company. So yes, to challenge the Chinese seniors were not very wasn't very good, apparently, to do.
And the practices of the Chinese, they were bringing in Chinese nationals to the mine, replacing workers. They weren't going through a normal hiring practice, which apparently was illegal under law. So you decided that you were going to fight this within the Namibian judicial system.
Yes, my own retrenchment then. So I registered a dispute at the Office of the Labour Commissioner here in Swakopmund. And it's a long process. You need to register the dispute. What in actual fact happened, the first dispute that me and my friend registered, two separate disputes, we registered it in the last month of working at the company while we were at home. But that was apparently that it was a technical error. You were only supposed to do that after your date of dismissal. So that took about 4 to 6 months to be dismissed. What did I say? The dispute. So after that dispute was dismissed, there was still enough time. I think we have 6 months in Namibia to register a dispute. So I then had more experience, and I ensured that the dispute was registered correctly, which was done in December 2018. So it took about a year up to end of 2019 for us to eventually have the arbitration hearing. We tried conciliation before the arbitrator didn't work, so we proceeded to arbitration. So I was well prepared for my arbitration. I had a very solid pack of documentation with evidence showing that my dismissal was not according to the Namibian labor law. So we went in there for 3 days for the arbitration, because I had 5 witnesses on my side. One of them was a fairly senior member of the mine workers union at that stage, and the other 4 were either employed at the mine still or were ex-employees of Swakopmund. They only had 1 employee, and that was the HR manager that was facilitating our dismissals. So I was very well prepared for I almost became like a lawyer in that 1 year in terms of preparation or preparing for this arbitration hearing. But after the 3 days, it took the arbitrator, I'm not sure now, took a couple of months. But eventually it was about a 50-page arbitration award, where the arbitration was in my favor, where she ordered compensation for that almost 2 years that I was not working for the mine, and she ordered for them to reinstate me. So I arrived on the doorstep the day after after we got the judgment from the arbitrator, and then they quickly gave me a lawyer letter to say no, they will appeal the outcome of the arbitrator. I am not required to come to work. So that then automatically went to the High Court, or to the labor court, as we call it in Namibia. That took a further year and a half. Eventually we saw each other at the labor court, and the labor court basically dismissed the appeal and also ruled in my favor in terms of compensation and reinstatement. At that time, I used to be an engineer, project director then for Swakopmund. At that time, I couldn't find engineering work around here. So I was teaching at the local public school. But after the High Court, or after the Labor Court ruling in my favor, I was just I had no doubts that this case, with the merits of the case, with the evidence, it all indicated in my favor. But still the company said, no, they will appeal to the Supreme Court. And it costed a lot of money. In the process, I had to sell my house in Windhoek that I had. That was for my retirement, basically. I had to sell that, and just to afford going to the Supreme Court. Of course, our labor law is actually written quite to the benefit of the employee. But in actual fact, that's not the way the process panned out. Of course, it took us basically 5.5 years to get to the Supreme Court. And to my surprise, then, when we got the judgment of the Supreme Court, that was about a month ago now, that stated they overturned the arbitrator's ruling in terms of reinstatement. So what they said, they will uphold the order of compensation for that 1 year and 10 months. But from 2020, There's no reinstatement. There's no compensation with interest from 2020. And it is very interesting because the judgment is clear where Swakopmund was at fault. According to my counsel, I got a very, very good cost order against Swakopmund. But you know, a cost order is always paying not full cost. So I will get hopefully about 80% of my legal cost. So in the judgment, it clearly says that Swakopmund was at fault. It clearly says they made a mistake, but still they didn't agree with the reinstatement. Basically, according to the judgment that I've shared with you, is that they said it would be
it would be harmful. It would be harmful to the company.
It would be harmful and unfair to the new employee that was put in my position and to the company to order reinstatement now. If you look at the labor legislation, and if I look at other cases, the arbitrator, there must be a really good reason to change the decision of the arbitrator. And the courts are not actually, they shouldn't interfere with the arbitrator's decision or with the arbitrator's ruling. But in my case, they did it. It was because there were apparently one case in the past where it was also said reinstatement is not the preferred option. So my problem at this stage with my case, I proceeded with my case to the Supreme Court to the benefit of the future Namibian workers that I knew there were many that cannot afford to spend 5 years in litigation, that do not have all this financial backup. So I said I will delve into my pension savings and I will use that to the benefit of the future Namibians. But what is happening now, this thing turned, the judgment now is so against the Namibian worker now in the future. So it basically gives the companies now carte blanche to dismiss or retrench as they see fit. And they can just then take it all the way up to the Supreme Court, and eventually they will use my case, Swakopmund versus Catlitz, and that will be their reference case to show how the judgment must be in the favor of the company.
And the Mine Workers Union of Namibia, you say that they supported you, and they were one of your witnesses.
Well, it was an individual, so it wasn't officially the Mine Workers Union themselves. It was just one of the senior members. He supported me during the arbitration, but they were not. You know, I wasn't before or during this whole process of my dismissal. I wasn't part of the Mine Workers Union. I'm just a proud Namibian that was looking out for my fellow Namibians and for the future Namibian and their children, you know. So that's why I took this thing on. But I never sort of seek the blessing of the union, because I knew my case was solid and I knew I had every right to stand on my 2 feet with all the evidence I had.
And there are other cases now in Namibia where Chinese private and public companies have taken over mines. They've taken over all of the uranium mines and many marble mines, and they're basically dismissing workers and retrenching and then contracting out and hiring contractors so that workers do not work for the mine owner directly. What is going on in Namibia? And George is joining us as well, has some experience with that, because a similar thing happened in Rossing, where the leadership of the union were dismissed. They're retrenching the workers. They hired a Chinese contractor, which then is employing workers as contractors. Is this the general situation that is developing in Namibia now in the mines?
I can just share from Swakopmund, George, and then you can say from Rossing. But okay. Yes, I cannot confirm, Steve, but after my dismissal, I've been told that Swakopmund is appointing mainly on fixed-term contract basis now, and that they are contracting most of their work. So like mining, blasting, it's Chinese contractors that's been appointed. And obviously with the Chinese contractors, they have their own ways and means of appointing people in mainly Chinese. But the days of being appointed permanently for these companies that seem to have been coming to an end.
Sufficient fund to take care of yourself, and these big giants or these companies, they wash their hands from this responsibility. So this is quite sad that our judicial system that should be neutral and that should really look at the merits of a case without being influenced by any made such a judgment because of I could say corruption, or because of strong influence from other factors which we all know. We are facing the same story as Koos. We've been at arbitration for like 4 years now. We are going into the 4th year, just arbitration, while our case is not being solved. And we see these things. We see the influence that these big companies have on our judicial system and on our government. So the only thing that we can do is to oppose and to stand up and get solidarity internationally, get the workers even in Namibia to stand up against this, and then maybe only we can fight and stand up against these companies.
Thank you. And Comrade Calitz, I mean, the conditions in the mines, if you have contractors in, and is health and safety a serious concern for mining in the uranium mines in Namibia and in the marble mines for that matter?
Yes, Steve, health and safety is in any mine. In any mine, there are so many risks and dangers in any mining company that health and safety is always a big issue. So we almost, we can never we can never be reluctant towards safety, never. And I think all over the world, there's been a huge emphasis about safety and how we treat workers and the safety rules and so on. So that is really something that is it's always stressed, safety.
And the fact that China now is a major owner of important natural resources in Namibia, the government owns a small percentage in the mines, but they basically taken over ownership of the natural resources, the wealth of Namibia. Where does that leave the future of Namibia? Because it seems that they're bringing in, importing Chinese workers for workers that can do the work in Namibia, such as yourself and other trained, skilled mine workers and people who know mining.
It's very sad, Steve. If you can say it's a scarce commodity, like maybe you can say some engineers, you can say maybe we don't have enough skilled engineers, so it's all right to bring skilled engineers in. Geologists, the same. Maybe it's right to bring people in if we don't have enough skills in Namibia. The sad thing is, though, that there are so many positions where we have Namibian people, qualified Namibian people, that is then being replaced by Chinese people, and that is wrong. That's not that is not right.
And the unemployment situation in Namibia, 50%, very high unemployment. It seems that basically when you import workers from China to do jobs for Namibians, you're basically threatening the livelihood, the future of the Namibian people. Do you see it that way?
Absolutely. You know, I've on, not even in the mines, in some road construction projects, I've seen general workers pushing wheelbarrows, working with a shovel, Chinese people. So it is a laborer basically brought in from China, who are taking a job of Namibian. So it is happening here in Namibia at the moment.
And China says that they're building socialism there. The SWAPO government is supporting China and said this is socialism with Namibian characteristics. What is the situation for the people of Namibia at this point, the working people and the people who are trying to survive in Namibia?
George, you must answer, I think.
What I can say, Comrade Steve, is life or the working class in Namibia it's fighting. We are finding it difficult to just get a decent job in terms of providing for your family. Look at what is happening currently now, is that you get competition from a Chinese worker or a Chinese or even a foreigner that comes in and compete against you for this low paying job. So it is difficult. So again, nothing is being done because of the political relationships and all those things by the government. So I would say that it's high time that workers come together and really stand up and fight against these injustices that are happening to us.
And Koos, this decision by the Namibian Supreme Court to basically overturn the ruling of the arbitrator, you're saying that this is a threat to all working people in Namibia?
Absolutely, Steve. There is no doubt in my mind that someone somehow interfered with that decision. Of course, it's not. If it was according to the law, the Namibian labor law, then it was clear, and according to all the evidence, it was clear that that decision should have been in my favor. So there was interference in that decision. And yes, absolutely, that decision of mine will be indeed a landmark case for future. It will open the floodgates for future dismissals and retrenchments and any type of unfair behavior by big corporates. They will go back and they will refer to my case. It is very sad that there is no international platform where this can be overturned. You know, Namibia, the Supreme Court is the highest court in our land. So I am heartbroken for myself, for what happened in my case, but I'm more heartbroken to what the judgment of this case will do to the future of so many other Namibians that's working and that's being treated unfair at major companies.
And who appoints the Supreme Court in Namibia?
I will speculate, Steve. I'm not 100% sure. I was always told that the Supreme Court is the highest authority. You know, the judiciary is the highest in our country. But it is obvious that the politics also plays a big role in the court system, and something is not right. It's not supposed to be this way.
Because under that appeal process, there is no one else to appeal.
Correct.
So basically, it's the politics of the situation. The government is allowing this by allowing the Supreme Court to rule in favor of this company and apparently the flagrant violation of labor law at your company.
Yeah, no, that's correct. I mean, we have a very good labor law. Our labor legislation. There's nothing wrong with the labor legislation. If the labor law is implemented as it is there in black and white, then things would have been different. But the problem is our laws are not being maintained by the judiciary.
Okay, well, I want to thank you for joining us. Koos, we've been talking with Koos Calitz, and he is a manager. He was an engineer, high-level engineer at the Husab mine in Swakopmund, and owned by the Chinese Guangdong Nuclear Holding Corporation, and signed a petition to support some workers who were facing discrimination of their rights. And as a result of that, he and two other workers were discharged, retrenched. He filed a grievance and went through a long process, and then the Supreme Court ruled against him. And also, we've been joined by George Martin, who was the secretary of the Mine Workers Union of Namibia Rossing branch, where the entire leadership of the Rossing branch were dismissed and been fighting for many years now to get their jobs back. So it seems like there's a systemic problem in Namibia protecting the rights of workers and the rights of and a fight against discrimination against workers in the mining industry and in other industries.